Imagine it, a whole town, alive one day and gone the next. 600 people, men, women, children, vanished into thin air, leaving behind homes, food, tools, and a single, chilling message written in chalk. This is not a ghost story, not an urban legend told around campfires. At least, that's what many still claim. This is the story of Hoer Verde, the Brazilian town that disappeared without a trace in 1923. And to this day, no one can say for certain what happened. The town of Hoer Verde was not large, but for its time and place, it was thriving. Tucked away in the Brazilian interior, it existed quietly, almost forgotten by the outside world. Life was simple. Families tended their crops, children studied in the small schoolhouse, and neighbors gathered at night under the open sky. It was not a place of fame or importance, just another dot on the map. But perhaps that is what makes what happened so disturbing. When a big city suffers disaster, the world notices. When a small town vanishes, it slips through history like smoke in the wind. The year was 1923. Brazil was living through turbulent times. Political unrest swept across the country as revolutions and uprisings shook cities and villages alike. Military factions clashed, and ordinary citizens often found themselves caught in the crossfire. For some, safety was an illusion. Yet Hoer Verde seemed far removed from this chaos until suddenly it was not. The story begins with travelers, or in some versions, soldiers, who made their way into Hoer Verde. They expected to find life. They expected to find children playing, shopkeepers calling out prices, neighbors talking in the street. But what they found instead was silence. The streets were empty, eerily still. The air carried no sound of animals, no chatter, not even the barking of dogs or the clucking of hens. It was as though life had been sucked away, leaving only the husk of a village behind. As the travelers ventured deeper, unease grew. Homes stood open. Doors creaked in the wind. Inside, meals were abandoned, as though a family had sat down to eat and then simply left in the middle of their dinner. Clothing was left half-folded. Tools were scattered on the ground, as if dropped mid-task. Radios rested on tables, untouched, waiting to be used again. It was as if time had stopped, and yet the people were gone. Even livestock had vanished. No chickens in the coops, no goats or cows in the pens. No dogs wagging their tails or barking at the strangers. Every living thing, human or animal, was missing. It was total emptiness. Then came the most chilling discovery of all. In the small schoolhouse, a blackboard bore a message written in chalk. 4 words that offered no explanation, only fear. There is no salvation. The words seemed hurried, almost carved in desperation, as if written by a trembling hand in the final moments before something terrible happened. Was it a warning, a clue, a prophecy? No one knew. But the presence of those words made one thing clear. Whatever had happened in Hoer Verde had not been ordinary. Theories began almost immediately. Some believed that the people of Hoer Verde had been forced to flee, driven into the jungle by political violence. The early 1920s in Brazil were marked by civil conflict, and rural villages often found themselves abandoned in times of war. Perhaps Hoer Verde was simply another casualty of this turmoil. But even this explanation raised questions. Why leave so suddenly, without taking food, belongings, or animals? Why abandon meals, tools, and possessions that would have been essential for survival in the wilderness? And if they fled, where did they go? No trace of 600 people ever surfaced. No refugees arrived in nearby towns. no descendants claimed to be from Hoer Verde. It was as though the people had walked into the jungle and been swallowed whole. Others believed something darker had taken place. Some whispered of bandits or rival factions wiping out the town, but no evidence supported this theory. There were no signs of violence, no blood, no burned homes. Hoer Verde was untouched. The absence of destruction was in its own way more terrifying than the presence of it. Then came the supernatural theories. Some claimed that Hoer Verde had been cursed, perhaps for angering spirits of the forest. Brazilian folklore is filled with tales of haunted jungles and restless entities that punish humans for stepping too far into their territory. Could Hoer Verde have fallen victim to such forces? The message on the blackboard, "There is no salvation," seemed to support the idea of supernatural doom. Others went further still, suggesting extraterrestrial involvement. Alien abductions were not yet part of popular culture in 1923, but in later retellings, some insisted that the clean, sudden vanishing of an entire town bore the marks of something not of this world. The story of Hoer Verde has often been compared to the mystery of the lost colony of Roanoke, a group of settlers in North America who vanished in the late 1500s, leaving behind only a single cryptic word carved into a tree: Croatoan. Both stories involve entire communities wiped from the map, both leaving behind a message that only deepens the mystery, and both remain unsolved, centuries apart. Skeptics, of course, have tried to dismiss Hoer Verde as myth. They point out that concrete documentation is scarce, that few official records exist of the town's disappearance. Some believe the tale was exaggerated or even invented, growing into legend over time as it was passed from person to person. But even myths are born from something. For locals who lived in the surrounding regions, the story was told as fact, not fiction. Eyewitnesses swore the town had existed, and if it truly was nothing more than a fable, why did so many details remain consistent? The abandoned meals, the missing animals, the words on the chalkboard. The psychological impact of the story cannot be ignored. Even those who did not believe in curses or aliens felt uneasy knowing that 600 people could disappear without explanation. The message, "There is no salvation," haunted imaginations, becoming a symbol of hopelessness, a reminder that sometimes there are no answers, only questions. Parents warned children not to wander too far into the woods. Travelers avoided the area, afraid they too might vanish. And Hoer Verde itself slowly disappeared from maps, reclaimed by the jungle, erased as though it had never been. To this day, the mystery lingers. What happened to Hoer Verde? Did its people flee into the jungle and perish, leaving no trace behind? Were they victims of a massacre, their remains lost to time? Or was something stranger at work? Something we cannot yet explain, something that defies reason. The silence of Hoer Verde is louder than words. It is the silence of meals left uneaten, of tools left on the ground, of a town frozen in time. It is the silence of absence, of 600 voices cut off at once. And it is the silence of that final message, scrawled across a schoolhouse blackboard in trembling chalk: "There is no salvation." Nearly a century has passed, and still the mystery endures. Perhaps one day new evidence will surface. Perhaps we will learn the truth. Or perhaps Hoer Verde will remain what it has become: a legend, a warning, a ghost story, written not in shadows, but in the empty streets of a town that was and then was not. Until then, Hoer Verde remains a chilling reminder that entire communities can vanish, leaving behind nothing but fear, speculation, and a haunting question that may never be answered. What happened to the 600 souls of Hoer Verde. Were they victims of man, of nature, or of something far beyond our understanding? No one knows, and perhaps no one ever will. Subscribe to this channel for more dark stories like this and more.